We are facing the most significant crisis of our lifetimes because of President Trump's justified trade actions and his threats to our sovereignty. Our response must be to build a strong economy and a more secure Canada. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen. We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons. We have to look out for ourselves. We have to look out for each other. We can have a new Canada built by us, for us. We can give ourselves more than any foreign government can take away. And the best way we can deal with this crisis is to build our strength here at home and help people who will be hit hardest by these tariffs. That's the right thing to do. That's the fair thing to do. That's the Canadian thing to do. That's what makes us strong.
Canada is gearing up for a general election that's right around the corner. Newly elected Prime Minister Mark Carney calling for a snap election, and he brought in help to show he does not have a problem confronting President Trump.
But let me ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada?
There will always be a Canada.
All right, elbows up.
Elbows up.
Carney taking office less than 10 days ago. His Liberal Party has the minority in Parliament and was expecting a heavy defeat this year. But Trump's return to the White House has upended the country's political landscape. Paula Newton joins us now from Ottawa. Paula, this is a bit confusing for American viewers because their elections are done a little, your elections are done a little bit differently. It's a much shorter time. But walk us through what's going to happen and how the tariff war and annexation threats have impacted the Liberal Party prospects.
Yeah, I'm not going to broach the irony of that, Jessica, given the fact that President Trump is saying that we should just be the 51st state anyway. But yes, again, it can be confusing, right? Because it does tend to change even through every election. Even the length of each election is different. This one, a mere 5 weeks. Can you believe it? Strict finance campaign laws. We have Mark Carney, just been prime minister for 10 days, taking over from Justin Trudeau, who was prime minister for nearly a decade. That's the Liberal Party. Then you have the Conservatives, Pierre Poilievre, who in fact was ahead in the polls, if you can believe it, Jessica, just late last year by nearly 30%. And now this race is a virtual tie, except that even if it's a virtual tie between those two leaders, because there are actually 6 national parties, how this all gets divvied up in seats and who actually becomes prime minister, still a bit of a cliffhanger, to say the least. One thing that is without any doubt, Jessica, is that everyone is taking aim at Donald Trump. I want you to hear now from both Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, really illustrating the person that both of them really will be running against. Listen.
I'm asking Canadians for a strong, positive mandate to deal with President Trump and to build a new Canadian economy that works for everyone. Because I know we need change. Big change. Positive change.
I will insist the President recognize the independence and sovereignty of Canada. I will insist that he stop tariffing our nation. And at the same time, I will strengthen our country so that we can be capable of standing on our own 2 feet and standing up to the Americans where and when necessary.
What will really matter, because you can hear that the tone and the message kind of the same, is how both of these leaders propose to fight back against those tariffs. And that really comes to a head in the middle of the campaign on April 2nd, when Donald Trump, Jessica, as you know, promises to put in those reciprocal tariffs. All economists believe that it is very likely that Canada will then, within a few months, be in a recession. But more than that, if Donald Trump goes through with these tariffs for sustained amount of time, it will really reshape not just the Canadian economy, but its very relationship with the United States.
Yeah, that seems pretty certain. Paula Newton, reporting from Ottawa. Thank you so much for all of that.
Mark Carney recently replaced Justin Trudeau as PM and as the leader of Canada's Liberal Party, and the voting will likely take place in hundreds of constituencies at the end of April, according to two government sources. Polls show Carney's party has rebounded in popular support as U.S. President Donald Trump imposes a catastrophic trade war and threatens to turn Canada into the, quote, 51st state. Carney hopes to remain as prime minister against the Conservative Party. He's promising to protect Canada against what many in Canada call its newly unreliable southern neighbor. Tari Ajadi is an assistant professor of political science at McGill University. He joins me now from Montreal. Tari, great to have you on the show. Really appreciate your time. We know that Trump has repeatedly blamed Canada for illegal immigration into the U.S., for the flow of fentanyl coming over the border, even though the stats on that don't align. He's threatened to turn Canada into the 51st state, and then there's all the tariffs as well. Describe the significance of this election in light of that backdrop.
So this election is really one of the most significant elections that certainly anyone can remember in Canada. For us, this is an existential crisis. Our economy, of course, is deeply integrated with the United States, but the prospect of annexation here is really driving up nationalist sentiments, and people are really kind of digging into what it means to be Canadian and standing very proudly behind that fact. And so this election will determine which leader really helps to kind of catalyze that kind of sentiment.
Yeah, an existential crisis. That's an interesting way to put things. Now, Mark Carney has never held an elected position, but he's spoken loud and clear about protecting Canada, and he broke from tradition by visiting Europe instead of the United States as his first foreign trip as the country's leader. How do you think his approach to Trump will be, and does it differ from his predecessor?
So I think that Mark Carney is in a uniquely strong position in one sense. Being a former governor of the Bank of Canada and governor of the Bank of England, he walks into this kind of election with an instant form of credibility. He has a kind of gravitas that befits someone that has been a significant figure in two G7 countries. And so I think that he's going to lean into that kind of previous experience, lean into the nationalist fervor, because the Liberal Party in Canada really is kind of the party of nationalism. And he's going to be able to speak declaratively to the Trump issue and to Donald Trump from the perspective of someone that, has been there before. So he's going to act as if he has a lot of experience dealing with folks like Donald Trump. So there's a particular kind of strength in that, but he has some significant risks in that approach as well. One of those being that he doesn't necessarily appear to do very well under significant pressure, whether that's from reporters or, crucially, whether that's kind of criticism from outsiders. And so I wonder how that's going to unfold in real time.
Yeah, and likely from the lack of experience in the political arena. What do you make of his harder stance against President Trump? Is that a winning strategy? What are you hearing from Canadians?
Well, certainly, the polling numbers would indicate that a very kind of robust Trump stance against Donald Trump, and crucially, a leaning into Canadian nationalism is appreciated. People are incensed at the way that Canadians have been treated. They are terrified about the issues related to the border, not just in terms of, the kind of bellicose threats, but, increasingly reports of Canadian citizens being disappeared for a couple of weeks, and then, of course, recently returning. These are the kinds of challenges and questions that make Mark Carney's position, a kind of firmer stance against Donald Trump, really something that is resonating with Canadians. Hence, we've seen this massive rebound in the polls over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, and we've seen this shift in the polling with liberals gaining ground. Do you think that this tension with the U.S. will significantly influence voters' decision, or is this a temporary political bump?
Well, of course, Donald Trump and the United States in general right now is erratic, increasingly authoritarian. And so, we can't necessarily know what's going on from week to week. That being said, this for Canadians is the ballot question. We have a relatively quick election period here. Mark Carney has been prime minister for all of 1 week and 1 day. And so, what we can suspect here is that this will centrally kind of guide voters' decision making in the polls.
Taria Jadi in Montreal, thank you for your time.